Hello, my name is Chris here. I'm going to talk to you about what life a deaf person is like. But a lot of people quite often ask me and don't understand what deaf is like, and they have asked me to create a video. So here I am. I hope it come out well, and though I have listed a whole heap of questions that I thought you might be interested to know, and I will answer them as much as I can. Okay, the first question is, how did I become deaf? Okay, I was born deaf. I never had a chance to hear. What happened was when my mother was having me when she was pregnant, she caught a disease called rubella or German measles. That can cause many cause of disability. In my case, it made me lose my hearing. But nowadays it is uncommon to find German measles or rubella, but there are many children in year 7, many girls in year 7 usually have a vaccination to prevent them from having it. How do deaf people communicate? There is a number of ways of communication. One is oral, which I was brought up old to do when I was younger, and I had a lot of speech therapy, which helped me to hear what's being said, and that made it so much easier for my speech to be good. It should be good. The other way that I have that people can communicate is, which is more common nowadays than when I was younger, is many deaf people use Odlan, which is for the Australian Sign Language, which is basically using your hand, like that when they're talking, they use their hand to communicate with other people. Okay, so you're probably wondering why I don't communicate with Auslan. Basically, because at the time that I was born, the theory of the way that children should be spoken at the time was that all deaf children should learn to speak. But in 1975, this theory was changed, and now it's getting more common for more deaf people to use Auslan as a method of communication. Both of them have advantages and disadvantages, and today I won't be discussing over that. Okay, how do I hear? Okay, I have 2 cochlear implants. I have one in the ear and one in the ear. If I take them off, I can't hear anything. I can't hear you, I can't hear my voice, I can't hear the fan, I can't hear the traffic, I cannot hear anything at all. To me, it is absolutely quiet. But when I put my cochlear implant, and I put the cochlear implant in my up there and up here, I now can hear you. But it does not restore hearing. All it does is make it easier for me to pick up the sound, but the biggest issue with many of them is the clarity. Now, you probably won't notice that when I put my cochlear implant on, if I give it to you, if somehow I can get the ticket on my head, set like that. You know how that happened? Well, I had an operation which had put the internal part of the cochlear implant into my head, and there is a magnet, a piece of metal, and here we have a magnet. And the magnet stick onto the metal part of my implant, and the sound go into the my cochlea, and I've had it done on both ears. But I'll talk more about that on another series. What's the difference between a cochlear implant and a hearing aid? Basically, a hearing aid amplifies noise. It makes noise louder for the person that's wearing the implant. Where with a cochlear implant, it basically transfers sound into the additional code. Like when you're speaking on the telephone. When you're speaking on the phone, voice gets transferred into additional code, then it comes out of voice. This is how it's very similar to how a cochlear implant works. Where with hearing aid, you have a microphone and it picks up all the sound around you. Okay, you will probably notice when I'm speaking, I speak a little bit differently. Well, that's basically because deaf people can pick up, can only speak the way they can hear. There are many sounds that we, deaf people, cannot hear, like the down. They are very difficult to pick up. So quite often when you're communicating to a deaf person, many of them would not pronounce those sounds. I was fortunate enough when I was younger to have a lot of speech therapy, plus having the cochlear implant, although have helped me to be able to hear and comprehend sound and speak sound a lot easier. Okay, now how else can deaf people communicate? As I mentioned before, deaf people have difficulty hearing with hearing aid, cochlear implant. They also can use lip reading, which basically means I or many deaf people can read your lip. Should remember, not all deaf people can do it, but some of them can. And even if they can do lip reading, it is not easy to do. It is estimated only 1 out of 3 words can be recognized by lip reading. So when a deaf person such as myself use lip reading to communicate, we only get 1 out of 3 words that we can understand it. There is a number of factors that we would need to use to help us to lip read. First, how clearly the person speaks. So for example, if you speak without moving your lip, it is very difficult to lip read. So it's very important that when you speak to a deaf person, you move your lip. The other thing we quite often have to know is what are you talking about? What's the background? What's the topic that you are talking about? When we know the information, it makes it so much easier for us deaf people to be able to communicate. Okay, you're probably wondering what I went to school, just like many of you people. How did I survive in a classroom? Well, when I went to school for the deaf for the first couple of years of my education. And then after that, I went to a normal hearing classroom, which means you could have up to 30 other children in the classroom. And with that, it can be very difficult for a deaf person to hear. Because with a hearing aid or with any hearing device that they may have, with a hearing aid, cochlear implant, they might pick up sound that you might, a hearing person might not pick up. So, for example, in a classroom, if I'm in a classroom, the hearing device, I will pick up a lot of unnecessary noise, such as people tapping on the table, chairs dragging up and down the floor, especially when you got wooden floor, a fan or air conditioner blowing air around. Those sort of sound a deaf person can pick up and can be a distraction. So basically what happened is when I went to school, I usually sat at the front of the classroom and the teacher will have a microphone, which is similar to what I have here. But it's different sort of microphone that are available. This one I have especially designed with Kotlin implant. Basically what happened is I will have a teacher wearing a microphone like this, and they will have them around their neck. So when they were speaking to me, they will only be that far away from my lip. So when they had a microphone, they will be speaking from here into the microphone, and the sound will be transmitted into the cochlear implant or hearing aid, which many people have. And that made it so much clearer for a deaf person such as myself to understand what's being said. Okay, now, after I finished school, I went on to university and I became a teacher. Though I am a legally qualified teacher, I had a lot of support both through my school year and through university. I had special support through university with tutors that will help me to go through and understand my work. They will also help me with my written work, because being deaf, I will have a problem with my writing. Because being deaf, I will write the way that I can hear. So if I make mistake with my speech, I will make mistake with my speech. I also, when I went to university, I had somebody taking note of what was being said. And plus I have what we call real-time captioning. Real-time captioning is when you have someone speaking into a microphone and it gets transmitted over the internet, and someone is listening to the speech and they type it out what's being said, and I would see what is being said on the my computer in front of me, so I can actually reading what is being said. This is a very similar way if I attend meetings. I participate in my community a lot, and sometimes I need to use Auslan interpreters, or I need to use real-time captioning. They use in the same format. Do deaf people drive? Definitely. I enjoy driving. I might not hear other sound than the car honking, police siren, ambulance. They can be very difficult for me to hear, but it does not prevent me from driving, because we have three mirrors, two mirrors on the side, one over here, one here, and you got one there. So a lot of deaf people can use mirrors to help them to see what's happening behind them, and we can see our surroundings. Do deaf people watch TV? Of course, I enjoy watching TV. On many TV, Netflix, and they all have real-time captioning, which make it so much easier for me to understand and read what's being said. Where if I get relied on hearing, it can be very difficult for me to understand what's being said. Deaf people making phone calls. Well, there is a number of ways that can be done. If some deaf people are lucky enough where they can use what we call a phone clip, or they can organise to have their phone directly streamed through their hearing device, like cochlear implant, hearing aid, and they can speak into it. That's one theory that many deaf people can use. The other way a lot of deaf people use to communicate is video, FaceTime, Zoom, Skype. That is another way that can be used for communication by telephone with deaf people. Or a relay service, which basically means I can contact somebody through the computer and I can type. It could be the computer or on my phone. I can type my message and be someone relaying the message to a hearing person by voice. So you have voice going into, you got message from me by voice to relay officer. The relay officer translate by voice to a hearing person. The hearing person relay back to the voice relay person, and they type the message back to me. So that's how we can communicate. One way we can communicate at a deaf person. Do deaf people play sport? Oh, definitely. I used to love playing sport. I quite often go swimming, and when I go swimming, I can't hear the instructor. Like if I go swimming and they have the gun go off, I can't hear it. There is a number of ways that it can be done. First, touch. I could be touched on my leg to tell me that the gun gone off, or lighting, or a flashing light to tell me gone off. Did deaf people listen to music? Of course they have. They might not understand what's being said, but we enjoy listening to music. And I have a bandage where if I wanted to, I can stream directly from my hearing aid or from my iPhone to my cochlear implant. I can stream directly by Bluetooth, and I would not hear any other sound with me. So it's a bit similar like you wearing an earpod or a headphone. I can have my phone streamed directly into the implant and you wouldn't even notice it. Now I hope I have given you a really good insight of what it's like to have a hearing impairment. And please, if you do have any other question, please leave a comment below and I will try and create another video about my deafness. Thank you.